There is a number retirement headlines almost never show you. They love to print the average retirement balance, a figure that sounds reassuring, even comfortable. But the average hides something. A small group of very wealthy savers quietly drags it upward, far above what a normal household will ever see. So today we ignore the comfortable average and find the real one. By the end, you will know what the typical American has saved, age by age. Here is the first crack in the story. According to Vanguard, the average account balance across its retirement plans was roughly $148,000 at the end of 2024. But the median, the person in the exact middle, had only about $38,000. That is not a small gap. The average is nearly 4 times the typical balance. When the average towers over the median like this, a few enormous accounts are doing the heavy lifting while most people sit far below. To understand why the gap is so violent, picture a room of 10 people. 9 have ordinary, modest balances. Then one walks in with $2 million saved. The median, the middle person, barely moves. But the average shoots up, because that outlier is added to everyone and divided evenly. Retirement data works exactly like that room. A thin sliver of high earners inflates every average headline, which is why the median tells the honest story. Now let us start the climb, using the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the most respected snapshot of American household wealth. We begin young. For families headed by someone under 35, the median held in retirement accounts was about $19,000. That includes households with nothing saved at all, which is why it sits so low. At this age, time is the asset, not the balance. But the clock is already running, faster than most people feel. Move into the 35 to 44 bracket, the years when careers accelerate and incomes finally rise. You would expect savings to leap. They grow, but more gently than the salary curve suggests. The median retirement balance for this group sits around $45,000. Mortgages, childcare, and student debt all compete for the same paycheck. Retirement is the goal that quietly gets postponed, one expense at a time. By the 45 to 54 bracket, retirement stops feeling theoretical. These are the peak earning years, and the median balance climbs to roughly $115,000. That is real progress. But this household is now perhaps 15 years from retirement, and a 6-figure balance, while it sounds substantial, has to stretch across decades once the paychecks stop. The math gets tighter from here. Now the most important bracket, the people closest to the finish line. For households headed by someone 55 to 64, the median retirement balance was about $185,000. Read that slowly. For the typical American on the doorstep of retirement, that is the whole cushion against 20 or 30 years without a salary. It is not nothing. But it is nowhere near what the comfortable headlines quietly imply. Let us put the whole journey on a single line so the shape is unmistakable. From under 35 through the 60s, the median rises, but like a gentle hill, not a rocket. There is no dramatic late surge that rescues the typical household. The curve flattens just when people need it to soar. This is the real American savings path, the one hidden every time someone quotes an average instead. Here is where the illusion becomes impossible to ignore. Watch the average and the median for the same age groups, drawn together. The median is the modest hill we just saw. But the average climbs into a different universe, pulled skyward by a small number of very large accounts. The space between those lines is the gap between the story you are told and the reality most people live. That widening canyon is the entire point of this episode. Vanguard's data tells the same story inside actual workplace plans. For workers 55 to 64, the average 401k balance was about $271,000. Impressive, until you find the median, the typical worker in that group, sitting at roughly $96,000. The average is nearly 3 times higher. Same plans, same age, 2 different realities, separated only by whether you are one of the lucky few with an oversized account. And we have not even mentioned the people with nothing at all, because the median assumes you have an account in the first place. Roughly 4 in 10 American adults say they have no money in any retirement plan, no 401k, no individual retirement account, nothing. These households are folded into the data, a major reason the typical balance stays so low. Before you fall behind a benchmark, you first have to be in the game. It gets sharper among older Americans, the ones with the least time to fix it. An AARP survey found that about 1 in 5 adults aged 50 and over have nothing saved for retirement at all. Not a small balance, but zero. These are people often a decade or less from leaving the workforce. For this group, Social Security is not a supplement. It is, very nearly, the entire plan. So how much should people actually have? The most widely cited yardstick comes from Fidelity. The guideline is 1 times your salary saved by age 30, 3 times by 40, 6 times by 50, 8 times by 60, and 10 times by 67. These are aspirational goalposts, not guarantees, and they assume no pension. But they give us a clean ruler to hold against reality. So let us hold it up, and brace yourself. Here is the collision. The benchmark says a 50-year-old should have roughly 6 times their salary saved. For a household earning around $60,000, that is about $360,000. The actual median for that age, from the Federal Reserve, was about $115,000. The typical household is not a little behind. It sits at roughly a third of the target. The gap is no longer a guess. It is measured. Now the payoff I promised at the start, the real number behind every comfortable headline. Take the household right before retirement, 55 to 64. The benchmark, 8 times a $60,000 salary, points to roughly $480,000. The typical balance, from the Federal Reserve, was about $185,000. That is less than 40% of the target. This is the gap the average was hiding all along. Let me leave you with one honest reframe, because numbers like these can feel crushing, and that is not the goal. The benchmarks are ideals, very few people hit every one, and being behind the median does not mean failure. It means you are normal, and the system itself leans against ordinary savers. The most powerful lever is not catching up overnight. It is starting, then raising your contribution by even 1%. Small, automatic, repeated. That is how the curve bends. So now the question I hand to you. When you compare your own balance to the typical American in your age bracket, are you ahead of that median, right on it, or honestly behind, like most people quietly are? And the harder one. Are these benchmarks a fair target, or are they designed for a level of income most households will never reach? Drop your age range and your honest answer in the comments. Let us see where this audience really stands.